Hello, hello, hello everyone, AgroVMX here, back with another making a tier list video, and this time, as you can tell from the name of the video, we're doing a tier list of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is something that I've wanted to do for a little while, and I know the timing of this is weird because we're literally like just a few weeks away from the release of another movie, Spider-Man Far From Home, I think it's No Way Home. No Way Home. That's what it's called. Yeah, Spider-Man No Way Home is coming out next month, just in a few weeks, and yeah, I understand, why they're sort of rapid firing them. Like, there's 4 of them that all came out this year, and the last 3 were all sort of like clustered together. And then there's like another 3 next year. There was a long, due to COVID, there was a long pause between the release of Spider-Man No Way Home, the second Spider-Man movie, and Black Widow, which was originally supposed to come out in theaters like ages ago, and then everything got pushed back due to COVID. They were sort of unwilling to just release the movies on Disney Plus. Eventually, these movies did hit Disney Plus, but they also wanted them to have theatrical releases, and of course, it's unwise to do that, in the heat of a pandemic. And now with, the pandemic, it's still very much a thing, but more and more people are getting vaccinated, and it's a little bit safer to, go to movie theaters. And also with the system of releasing movies both in theaters and on streaming, we're seeing an influx of these movies again. So I didn't actually make this tier maker template. I edited it, though. It was already there, but the only things they edited was I added this only had S through D in it. I added F, although I don't think any of these are really an F. I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe in general is really good, and I think that they've that they haven't really released a really bad one yet, but I decided it would make sense if the F was there, just to have it there. I added 2 extra tiers as well, X and XX, and the reason is because of these TV shows that are down here. Now, this does not include the Netflix TV shows such as Daredevil and Luke Cage and Jessica Jones and Iron Fist and all those, Punisher and Defenders. It does not include the network television shows such as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter. And I think the reason is because they're questionably canon. The way that it seems to be handled is that the movies of the Marvel Cinematic Universe are canon to the shows on Netflix and the shows on the networks, but not the other way around. Nothing in the shows has affected the movies. The only exception was that Edwin Jarvis, who was a character from Agent Carter, did appear in Civil War in a brief cameo. That's like the only time something from one of those shows, just the network shows, came over. I know that like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they would try to write in things that would affect the movies or explain things that were going to happen in the movies. But then there are things like Agent Phil Coulson, who died in the movies, is considered alive on the TV show, but still considered dead as far as the MCU is concerned. However, the Disney Plus shows seem to be different because they're using, instead of creating characters and using maybe like very minor characters like Agent Coulson, or Agent Carter, and turning them into shows, they're using major characters, and it is affecting the MCU. So those Disney Plus shows are on here. The X tier is for a show that I've started but not finished, and the XX tier is for a show that I haven't even started, although I will be ranking all of the movies up to and including Eternals. So let's get this going. There's a lot of these. I do want to talk about each one briefly and give my reasons for why I'm putting it in the tier that I'm putting it in. I also want to mention that I did review a lot of these movies. Some of them were for features. Some of them were just as they came out. I decided to do reviews of them. And you may find that sometimes my opinion has changed, and that's a normal thing that happens. I just want to sort of paraphrase something Roger Ebert once said about how he felt about a movie after revisiting it after a long time. Being consistent is antithetical to being a good critic of movies. If you're going to, engage in the art of film critique, you have to understand that opinion, it is just an opinion. It is an educated opinion, and it is a well-spoken opinion if you're good at it. And it's supposed to be an opinion that other people are going to somewhat trust or at least respect. but at the same time, it is an opinion, and opinions do change over time. And if you have the same tastes at 40 that you do at 20, which is what he said, then you really aren't growing as a person. And I'm 40. I don't have the same taste that I did when I was 20. Now, the MCU hasn't quite been around for 20 years, but sometimes you watch movies multiple times and your opinions change. Sometimes later movies in the series will temper your opinions on earlier ones. That has happened quite a lot, actually, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I still do like all of these movies to one extent or another. There's no movie on here that I just like outright hate. There's just some that I don't like as much. But anyway, let's get down to it. So, damn it, I had these all in order, and I think I refreshed it or something, and they got all out of order. So that's really shitty. But that's okay because I have another window open that has the list of them in order. I had put all these in order down here, and then I somehow it got out of order, so that's just great. Okay, well, Iron Man's first. I think they're in alphabetical order right now, so here's Iron Man. So Iron Man, I'm going to put this squarely in the... This is going to be a sort of controversial opinion here, because it's not what my opinion used to be, and it's not what a lot of people's opinions are, but I'm going to put this in the B tier. I used to say that this was definitely A tier. I think in my original review I gave it like a 9 out of 10. Iron Man is a good film, and I enjoy it quite a lot. The reason that I put it in the B tier is because when you think about what these tiers mean, you know, like the S tier is like, okay, so like they're superhero movies, right? They're superhero movies, and superhero movies are not always put to the same criteria as movies in general, right? Like, there's movies that are good for being a superhero movie, and then there are movies that are just good whether or not they're a superhero movie. And I think that to be in the A tier or the S tier, it has to be a movie that is good not just for being a superhero movie. And I think that Jon Favreau's Iron Man is good for being a superhero movie. It's an okay movie otherwise. It's a pretty simple story. It doesn't exactly reinvent the wheel. It plays it extremely safe. The wildest thing they did in this film was they cast Robert Downey Jr., who at the time was sort of persona non grata in Hollywood. And I think that like when Iron Man came out, it was sort of like the golden standard of Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was the first one, and it took them a while to make something as special as Iron Man again, but now they've made better movies. So I think that sort of bumps it down to the B tier. And I will be like sort of ranking these like with the ones that are better being on the left. And Gibbs, stop that. Come here. Stop that. So, you know, it's a high B tier. Like it's like a B plus. Okay, so Incredible Hulk, where are you? There it is. So Incredible Hulk, I think, is a C tier movie. It's high C tier, but it's pretty good. But it's not like amazing. Gibbs, hey, stop doing that. So Incredible Hulk is certainly not a bad movie. You know what it is, though? It's a dumb movie. It's not smart. It's sort of a plotting, obvious. The script isn't amazing, but what is good about it is, you know, the way that it's put together. The acting is pretty good. It's not, like I said, it's just sort of, it's like a C plus. You know what I mean? It's a high C tier. So Iron Man 2, yeah, Iron Man 2 is next, right? I don't have to look at the thing to know that. Okay, so Iron Man 2 I think is also C tier, and this is an interesting one because when I first saw Iron Man 2. I was disappointed. I actually didn't see Iron Man when it came out because I was just like, I don't really like Iron Man. And you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't into the character as a superhero. And, like, the movie just, it looked okay, but, like, there was nothing about, like, the trailers or anything that made me want to see it. Then I see the trailer for Iron Man 2, and I'm like, wow, that looks really fun. I want to see that. But first I should watch the first one. So I watched the first Iron Man, and I loved it at the time. At the time, it was an A tier. Now it's a B tier. Iron Man 2, I was disappointed. Now, but I still thought it was really good. I thought it was maybe just a little bit, you know, didn't live up to its full potential. It had a lot of different plot threads that didn't necessarily mesh together. The villain was a little underwhelming, you know, things like that. Iron Man 2 is a movie that sort of like got worse as I watched it more, but I still don't dislike it. I would say that like while Incredible Hulk is like a high C tier, like a C plus, Iron Man 2 is like a low C tier. It's like a C minus. So okay, what's next? I think it's Thor. Okay, I had these in order. It kills me that they're no longer in order. At least they're in alphabetical order. So Thor is B tier. It's not as good as Iron Man, but it's a pretty interesting origin story. I think Thor is definitely a movie that I like more after seeing it a few times. The first time that I saw it, I felt that it dragged in the middle. I didn't so much like the romance aspect. I didn't really buy Natalie Portman as Jane Foster. I felt that it spent too much time with him on Earth, and I was really interested in the crazy Asgard stuff that was like the beginning of the movie. That being said, there's a lot of great characterization here. I really like Kat Dennings' character. I think, the introduction of Loki is one of the most beloved characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Nobody but Tom Hiddleston could have played him that well. I think it's a decent movie. I think it's not as good as Iron Man, but it's a good movie. Probably the worst thing about it, Chris Hemsworth's eyebrows. What were they thinking on that? And also, it was directed by Kenneth Branagh. I'm unapologetically a fan of his directorial oeuvre, so there is that. Okay, so moving on, we have the first Captain America movie, which is Captain America, the First Avenger. I love this movie. I think this is an A-tier movie. This is absolutely an A-tier movie. Now, I know a lot of people are like, on this one. It's a period piece, and it takes place during World War II, and it has this sort of like Art Deco vibe to it that I really liked. I liked the way it was shot. I think that Chris Evans was like the perfect casting choice. And then, you had Haley Atwell and Tommy Lee Jones and, Agent Elrond. Agent Megatron of the Council of Elrond as the Red Skull. Yeah, Hugo Weaving. I thought it was really good. Is it cheesy? Absolutely yes. Is that a bad thing? Absolutely not. It's sort of like almost like a movie serial, like modernized. Like if they still made movies like they did in the 40s, but with just modern special effects, it would look like this, So I actually really liked Captain America. I liked all the Captain America movies a lot. I seem to hold them in high regard. Okay, so then moving on, we have the first Avengers movie. Now, where is it? I'm not seeming to see it. That's Age of Ultron. That's where is the Avengers? Is it just like that? I'm not. Is it under T for Avengers, comma the? Yeah, there it is, right there. Wow, that's lame. Okay, so when I first saw Avengers, I would have put it like here, right? Low B tier. And I never understood why everyone like talked about this as being like the best Marvel movie and how it was so amazing. It is amazing that they pulled it off, but as a film by itself, is it really that amazing? I don't feel that it is. I really don't feel that it is, to be honest with you. And then over time, I would put it more up here, right? It started to click with me. I started to feel like I understood why everyone loved this movie so much and what made it special. But then after a while, I feel like it more belongs over here. And here's what it comes down to, is that The Avengers was a great movie in the sense that they did something on that scale at the time. But I have major issues with the script. I think the script is awful. I think that there's a lot of things about it that are great, but I think a lot of the characters are wildly out of character. They don't act like they did in their previous appearances. And, it just, a lot of it didn't make sense to me. It didn't click. It clicked and then it unclicked. You know what I mean? There was something about it that I just didn't like, and when it comes down to it, it's just Joss Whedon. I'm not a fan of his work, really. I think that he's a hack, to be honest with you, as far as writing goes. As far as directing goes, what makes this movie great is the characters and the action. What makes it not great is the script and the direction. And having seen Avengers movies directed by, much more competent directors with much better scripts, I can say that, yeah, it's not that great. Okay, so I think it's Iron Man 3 next, right? Let me see. Yeah, Iron Man 3 and then Thor the Dark World. Okay, so Iron Man 3 is an interesting one. When I first saw Iron Man 3, which is it's somewhere around here. I just saw it. I'm not seeing it at all now. I thought this was in alphabetical order. Oh, there it is, Iron Man 3. I would have put it here. It was like my least favorite. I might have even put it here, to be honest. I didn't like it when I first saw it. It was my least favorite. I felt like they were playing too much off the Avengers. They were, and that's fine because like at first I felt like I don't like it if you have to have watched every movie in the series to understand anything. You know what I mean? And Iron Man 3 on its own did not hold up for me because it's like if you didn't watch the Avengers and you didn't watch the first two movies, you're really going to have no idea what you're doing. Now, I understand it's Iron Man 3, so at least you should be expected to maybe have watched the first two, but this like Avengers is like really important to this. That being said, this is a movie that over time I've come to appreciate more and more. So as of right now, I would actually put it probably right here in the B tier, right above Thor there, and between Thor and Iron Man. I think it's actually pretty good. The direction is amazing. That's what really, like, Shane Black made a really cool looking film. It's definitely an extremely Shane Black movie, and it is definitely a movie that gets better and better as you watch it more and more. It's pretty cool. Somebody said to me that like Metal Gear Solid seems to be a very big influence on Iron Man 3, and I have to agree. It's like even the dumb twist of Ben Kingsley's character not being the Mandarin but being some actor who is playing the Mandarin. I thought it was really dumb when I saw it, and the thing is, it's meant to be dumb though. It's meant to be a dumb twist, and I get that. And even that was sort of like a very Metal Gear sort of move, and I kind of appreciate that in its own way. So, yeah, it doesn't stand up very well on its own as an individual film, which is why it's not A tier. You know what I mean? An A tier or an S tier film to me is a film that you can watch without having watched anything else and love it. That being said, let's move on. Okay, so Thor the Dark World is a much maligned film. A lot of people call it the worst film in the Marvel universe. Like they'd put it here, right? I don't agree with this. I don't really understand the hatred for Thor the Dark World. Is it a perfect movie? No. Is it good? Yes. I would actually probably put it right here. High C tier, right? If I can get Hulk to move over. There we go. That's where I would put it. It's a high C tier film. Is it as good as the first Thor? No. And yes, like there are things that it does better and there are things that it does worse. And I think that most of the plot's better. Like the plot, the script is better. The characters, they even the Earth character, like they take Jane Foster and they bring her to Asgard. I think where they stumble is with the villain, Malekith. He's just not all that interesting. They kind of wasted Christopher Eccleston, I think his name is, the actor who played Malekith. They kind of wasted him. He was just evil man in makeup. Like I didn't really get like what he was about or anything like that. I get what his goals were, but like he didn't have much of a personality other than just evil McBad guy. And for the longest time, the Marvel Cinematic Universe kind of had that issue. It had a villains problem where the villains weren't super strong, and For the Dark World had like the weakest villain. But overall, I do think it's not a bad movie. I don't quite understand the hatred for it. I don't understand it at all, actually. Okay, so moving on, it would be Winter Soldier. Now, Captain America Winter Soldier is an interesting one. You don't need to have seen the first Captain America. It helps if you did. You don't need to have seen really any of the movies, even though it makes references to a lot of things that have happened. This is a movie that I got to put this right up in the S tier. This is the first time that it was not just a really good movie, like Captain America, Part 1 was a really good movie, but it was also a really smart movie. I felt like it was not just a good superhero movie, but it was like a good political thriller with action, you know what I mean? And it did pretty much everything right. It made references to a lot of the films. It's one of those films that, like, if you hadn't watched anything up until this point, you can still enjoy the story. But if you have watched everything up until this point, you get even more out of it. It's like a bonus. It's not required, but it's a really good bonus. So that's what I think makes it an S tier film. Everything about it, the cinematography, the acting, the direction, I think is just top notch. I think it's excellent. Okay, so that's Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier is really good. I felt like I was watching a cross between like The Manchurian Candidate and like a really amazing action spy movie, like a James Bond movie or something. Might have to do a James Bond tier list, but I gotta watch No Time to Die before I do that. Okay, so moving on, we have Guardians of the Galaxy. So Guardians of the Galaxy is the first time that one of these movies was sold as being funny, right? And I think that, you know, they're all kind of funny in their own way. Like the characters, like each of these movies has funny moments. But this is the first one where it's leaning into action comedy, right? And you can tell that right from the first get-go, from the first trailer, where you have like, you know, like Hooked on a Feeling and all these wacky characters. I was never a fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy in the comics because I was more familiar with the Guardians of the Galaxy comics from like the 60s through the 80s and the early 90s where they were lame as hell. Apparently they got rebooted at one point and they're actually pretty cool. So where am I putting this one? I think that I think it's definitely an A tier film, and I would say I put it right there. It's funny. It's got a lot of heart. It's cool space opera stuff. We finally get like a proper introduction of Thanos. He had appeared in a post-credit scene in the first Avengers movie where all he did is look at the camera and smile. And this is like a more of a proper look at Thanos, who's like the overall villain of the MCU, at least up until Avengers Endgame. So yeah, it's an awesome movie. I really have nothing negative to say about it. It's just the only thing that stops it from being, you know, higher up is I just probably, like if you said, what do you want to watch, the first Captain America or the first Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm going to pick the first Captain America. You know, that's what I would go with there. Okay, so Age of Ultron, the second Avengers movie. So this is, I saw the trailer for it and I was like, that looks cool. This looks like it might actually be an improvement on the first Avengers. And remember that for me, the first Avengers was like a little bit of a letdown in some ways. And I was at the point where like it hadn't really clicked with me yet. Because remember, it clicked and then it unclicked, right? This movie is actually what made the first Avengers click more. Because it was disappointing. Like, it's not nearly as good as the first Avengers movie. And I was sitting in the theater looking at it, and I was actually doing this. Right? I was like biting my knuckles because I'm like sitting there like, oh my God, this is bad. Like, it was the first time that I felt like I was watching a bad MCU film. And that's like about maybe a half hour into it. I feel that Avengers Age of Ultron's third act is what saved it. It got better towards the end. And I think that's the reason that Avengers Age of Ultron is in the D tier. I think if the tone of the first act and the second act was also the tone of the third act, it would absolutely be in the F tier. It would just be a bad movie. I think that it comes back somewhat at the end. I think the turning point was the scene at the farm, which is awkward and weird, and I have my issues with the script because it's another Joss Whedon mess, but I think everything after that is actually pretty good. I also felt that it was a weird thing that I noticed when I was watching it for the first time. It seems weirdly reminiscent of the plot of Final Fantasy VII, which I thought was a strange thing. At least it's better than the Age of Ultron comic, which was just a mess. But Age of Ultron is the closest they've come to at this point to making a bad MCU film, and I would absolutely say it's the worst film in the series. And when people sit there and they say, oh, the worst film is Iron Man 2, there's almost like these like red and blue arguing. The worst film is Iron Man 2. No, the worst film is Thor the Dark World. And then somebody's like, no, Incredible Hulk. And I'm like, you're all idiots. It's Avengers Age of Ultron. But even then, I don't think it's an F tier effort. And the music stopped. So let me just go ahead and change the playlist. Okay. So yeah, that's Avengers Age of Ultron. I kind of don't like it, but it's not complete garbage. Like I would watch it again. I've watched it a few times, and there are things that I hated about it when I first saw it that I hate even more, and there are things that I like about it that I now like even more. So it's kind of complicated in that sense. Okay, so moving on to Ant-Man. Ant-Man is another comedy film. Now, a lot of people had a negative reaction to Ant-Man because the original director dropped out. He wasn't getting along with Marvel. He wanted to make a Marvel movie. They didn't want to make a movie in his style. He wanted them. So, it became a whole thing. I think that was Edgar Wright. And I'm not like a huge fan of Edgar Wright's films. I'll be honest with you. I think he's overrated. But a lot of people are like, Ant-Man would have been better if Edgar Wright had done it. And we really don't know that. I can't review the film against this idealized idea of what it could have been had another person directed it. Kind of like Thor: The Dark World. Like, would I have been interested in seeing Patty Jenkins's vision of it? Absolutely. But am I saying that it sucked because Patty Jenkins didn't do it? I don't know what job Patty Jenkins would have done with it. I really don't. So that being said, Ant-Man, it's pretty good. It's very funny. This is definitely even more of a comedy than Guardians of the Galaxy. It's an action heist comedy movie with superheroes in it. That being said, I think it falls squarely in the B tier. And as for where in the B tier, I think I would put it like it's a little better than Thor, I think, right? I think it's a little better than Iron Man 2. I put it right here. Right? Come on. Right there, right? That's where I'd put Ant-Man. It's not as good as Iron Man, but it's better than Iron Man 2, I think. Okay, so that's that one. What's next? Okay, so the next one is Civil War. Captain America Civil War. This is the third Captain America movie. And I think this is another A-tier film. I think it goes right here. It's not as good as Guardians of the Galaxy, but I feel like Civil War was Avengers 2.5, right? Like, it's definitely an Avengers movie. Like, it has even more Avengers in it than Age of Ultron did. That being said, this is, of course, the film where the Avengers fight each other. They splinter off into two factions, one of which is led by Iron Man, one of which is led by Captain America. Since this is not Avengers Civil War, it's Captain America Civil War. This sort of tells you a few things about the tone of it and everything. It has the same directors that the two brothers that directed, I think they're called the Russos. They directed Winter Soldier. I don't think this is as good as Winter Soldier, but it's close in terms of its tone. The reason that I'm putting it below first Captain America and Guardians of the Galaxy is this is one that very much requires you to have seen everything, right? It's like you'll be lost without it. Like, you'll have to understand, like, who are all these other characters. Whereas Winter Soldier, yes, Winter Soldier had the Black Widow in it. Winter Soldier had Nick Fury in it, but they were like supporting players. They weren't like really important. You could have just watched the first Captain America and then go into Winter Soldier without having to watch all these Avengers films. Whereas this, you have to know who Iron Man is and who, all these other characters, Iron Man and all his teammates, and then, like practically the whole Avengers and like the Vision and, so yeah, it's interesting. It's really good, but I think that it just suffers a little bit from having to have watched everything. And we're getting more to that point because now the Marvel Cinematic Universe films are like a singularity at this point, where it's expected that you've seen the majority of them, but I still will place a higher priority on movies where you can enjoy them on their own, and not be like totally confused, I think. And I think that's what puts it where it is on my tier list. Doctor Strange. Okay, so Doctor Strange is almost like a redux of Iron Man in a way. Like it makes references to previous films, but it's almost like this origin story that's encapsulated all on its own, and that's part of the reason that I really liked it. Cumberbatch is really good in this role. I really like the visuals. Let's see, where am I going to put it, though? I think it's B tier. I think it's like right here. Like, I like it a little more than Iron Man, a little less than Iron Man, a little more than Ant-Man, and I think that like the only thing holding Doctor Strange back is the villains. Like, the MCU has a villains problem, right? At least it still did at this point. Caecilius is an interesting villain played by a good actor. I wanted more of him. I wanted more of him and his motivations. They get into it a little bit in the third act where you find out why he is the way he is. You get a little bit, but it's very much like Doctor Strange and all about him, you know. So that's my placement, and it's sort of like where I put it and why. I really like Doctor Strange. Good movie. Okay, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. This one's extremely polarizing. Some people love it, some people hate it, right? For me, I'm firmly in the love it. Where is it on my thing here? Why am I... Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm firmly in the love it. I think it's great. I think it's better than the first one. I'm going to put it right here, like right in front of the other one. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. This is the first time that I felt the main villain was really strong. You know what I mean? Other than Winter Soldier, where the main villain was sort of like the government, you know, and a senator played by Robert Redford, right? But like this is the first time that there was a superpower, you know, super villain that I felt was a really strong villain, which was Ego, played by Kurt Russell. And it's interesting because like if you look at like the Guardians of the Galaxy films, the main character Star-Lord, played by Chris Pratt, who I'm not like a big Chris Pratt fan, but his sort of like douchebag energy lends itself to Star-Lord, so it works, right? But like the first film, he had mommy issues. In this film, he has daddy issues, and then in Infinity War, he had father-in-law issues. So it's like an old meme, but it's very true. You know, Star-Lord meeting his father and having this weird arc, the Guardians being a little bit splintered, not ideologically, but splintered physically. They're separated from each other, and introducing Mantis and Nebula. I mean, Nebula was in the first film, but now she's more like one of the Guardians of the Galaxy and more involved with them. This was a really good movie. I know that it's like a lot, but I also think that it works. It only requires you to have maybe seen the first Guardians of the Galaxy. And like I said, I give priority to movies that don't expect you to have watched the whole thing. But if there's a number in the title, like Guardians of the Galaxy 2, yeah, you should be expected to have watched the first one. You know what I mean? But maybe you don't have to have watched everything else, is what I'm saying. I think it's really good. It's funny. It's got some great laughs. It sets up, you know, the third movie, which still hasn't happened. But it doesn't make it a show of that. That was a major issue with Avengers Age of Ultron, is I felt like the whole second act was like a commercial for 15 other Marvel movies. Whereas this one, they just sort of like put in a few references here and like, oh, this is, you know, kind of where we're going with the third one that'll happen at some point. But let's get to the main event, which is the whole Ego thing. So, and also Ego in the comics was a really lame character. So making him interesting, I always think when they take like a really lame character from a comics and they make him really interesting and cool, I give points for that. I stand movies that do that. Okay, so Spider-Man Homecoming. So this is like the 6th Spider-Man movie, right? There was 3 directed by Sam Raimi. There were 2 directed by Mark Webb. The guy's name is Webb. He directs Spider-Man movies. Wow, who'd have thunk it, right? And then Spider-Man, the MCU version of Spider-Man, played by Tom Holland, had made his debut in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Not Winter Soldier, Civil War. But now he gets his own movie. Homecoming had a lot of meaning behind it because there's the Homecoming event because he's a high school kid, but also Spider-Man coming home to Marvel. I really like it. I think it's really good. Where do I put it, though? Spider-Man Homecoming. God, this is tough. I think it's A tier, but where on the A tier? Where in the A tier do I put it? That's a rough one. I think it's like an A-. It's like low A tier. You know what I mean? I really like Tom Holland as Spider-Man. The villain, once again, they started. This is where Marvel started to knock it out of the park with the villains. The Vulture, played by Michael Keaton. Wow, great. The cast, they're high school kids, and they actually look like high school kids. Like, yeah, Tom Holland's like 20, right? But he looks 15. You know, like it I hate when they cast like way older. You know, okay, they did cast way older people, but they at least look young. You know, they look like teenagers. It's a lot of fun. It's probably my favorite version of Spider-Man. And it's weird because Spider-Man always starts off like really strong and then kind of loses its way. Like the Sam Raimi films, I really like the first two, and the third one was a mess. The Mark Webb films, the first one I really liked. The second one I wanted to like, but it was a mess. And that one was, I struggled with The Amazing Spider-Man 2 because I could see the skeleton of the good movie that Mark Webb wanted to make, and then I could see all the crap Sony piled onto him and mandated to be in the movie. That being said, I thought this was a triumph as a Spider-Man movie, and I had kind of given up on the character in especially in movies, but I feel like they did him justice there. So that's where I would put Spider-Man: Homecoming. Okay, so Thor Ragnarok is next, right? Thor Ragnarok is awesome. Yeah. Thor Ragnarok is awesome. This is an A tier movie. As a matter of fact, this is an A plus tier, and I'm gonna put it right here. Yeah, wow, right? Thor Ragnarok. See, like, and if you look at it, like, where are the Thor movies in completely different tiers, right? Thor Ragnarok, the third movie is the A tier, the second movie is the C tier, the first movie is the B tier. This movie is awesome. It kind of has everything. This one, does it require you to have watched everything? If you just go from Thor to Thor 2 to Thor 3, I think you're okay. Like, yes, the Hulk's in it, right? Yes, they make references to a lot of Avengers stuff. But like I said, at this point, the MCU is a singularity. Most people have seen those films. They're very, very important films. But, like, okay, so if you've never seen an Avengers movie, like, he meets the Hulk, what does he do? He's a friend from work. It's explained almost immediately that, oh, this is a guy he knows. They make references to things, but it's not like the plot of Age of Ultron, which is where the Hulk had flown into space at the end. It's not all that important. They make cute references, like doing the sun's getting low, But I really like this one. It's extremely funny, but at the same time, it's got a lot of heart. The action is fantastic. It's none of it's set on Earth except for like a few scenes with Doctor Strange, and that's another thing. Like, Thor hasn't actually met Doctor Strange. So if you've never seen Doctor Strange, it's like, okay, like they go to Earth and then like Doctor Strange sort of kidnaps Thor to talk to him, and he introduces himself like, "Hi, I'm a wizard. I watch over mystical threats, and your brother is one of them." You could come into the MCU on this one. You don't even have to have watched the first two Thor movies. So Taika Waititi made a fantastic film here. I'm definitely a fan of his work. So yeah, if you haven't seen Thor Ragnarok, I mean yeah, definitely watch that one. It's really awesome. Okay, that being said, what's next? So Black Panther's next. Black Panther, God, this one was good. It's definitely A tier. Where do I put it? I put it here, right? Not as good as Thor Ragnarok, a little better than Captain America: First Avenger. Black Panther is awesome. Like, I very much enjoyed the character as he was introduced in Civil War. You don't have to have watched Civil War. They sort of give you the broad strokes in the very beginning of the movie, and they just make this really good movie. They introduce sort of a weak villain, and I don't mean physically weak, but like a not that interesting villain, Ulysses Klaue. He was already in Age of Ultron. You don't have to have seen that. They don't really make much reference to that other than he has a mechanical arm because Ultron ripped it off, but who cares, right? He's played by Andy Serkis, who I saw his face and I couldn't think of his name. Andy Serkis, who is a really good actor, but they didn't give him much to work with. But the whole thing is that Klaue is like a red herring, the real villain being Killmonger, who is very interesting. So I think the only criticism of Black Panther, and this is an odd thing to say, but the only criticism of Black Panther that I have is the special effects are weak. It was kind of shocking to see the special effects be as weak as they are, and it's not a big deal. That's why it's still in that high A tier where it is. I think that it's just weird because, like, it's not something that you'd say about these movies all that often, that there's like a major special effects failure, that the special effects kind of look bad, The Marvel Cinematic Universe had a certain standard to it, and Black Panther didn't quite hit that standard of special effects. I almost kind of wish that they would touch it up on the Disney Plus version or something. But there's a few parts where the CGI is like, ooh. And they use a lot of CGI in these films, of course. And sometimes the CGI is mind-blowing. Like when they de-age Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War that looked amazing. Black Panther is on the low end of the special effects, but that's like if the worst thing that I'm gonna say is that some of the CGI was weak, that's pretty strong. The acting was really good. I love the cast. Some amazing amazing lines in it. I really liked pretty much every character that's in it. So yeah, it's still that high A tier. It just has like one crippling flaw, right? Okay, Infinity War. Now, this is one that kind of expects you to have watched the majority of the movies, right? But considering that it's the accumulation of everything before it, and that's sort of the whole point of the movie, I'm not really going to knock it for that. You know what I mean? I'm not going to knock it at all for that. And the Russo brothers had said that if you just watch their films, Captain America 2 and 3, you're set. You don't have to have really watched the first Avengers. All you need to know is there's these team of superheroes, and there's a villain, and then shit happens. You know what I mean? But it's interesting that they say that you have to watch Winter Soldier and Civil War, which are their films, right? Because Infinity War felt like the natural continuation of that. It felt like a Captain America film. That being said, I want to make sure I'm not screwing up Infinity War and Endgame because they look very similar and they're very, very tiny here. This is Infinity War, right? Yeah. So Infinity War is S tier, right? That is Infinity War. No, that's Endgame. Shit. They have very similar logos. So yeah, it's S tier. It's absolutely S tier. I don't think it's as good as Winter Soldier, but this is a movie. Okay, so yeah, spoiler alert for a real, not a really old movie, but spoiler alert for a movie that everybody's seen, right? They lose. The Avengers lose. And it has this dark, depressing ending, and the whole movie is sort of dark and almost nihilistic, and it's just almost oppressive, and I actually really like that, and I think that depressing movies work if they're done really, really well. And I always like those dark interludes, right? Like Empire Strikes Back, for example, had that dark ending, and that was what made it such a great movie, right? And that's like my way of saying it's the Empire Strikes Back of the MCU. I think it's really, really awesome. Probably still put Winter Soldier above it, right? But this is close. Okay. So that, what is it, Ant-Man or Spider-Man? I think Ant-Man's next, right? Let me bring that thing up. Oh, no, Ant-Man, then Captain Marvel, and Spider-Man's after. Okay, so Ant-Man and the Wasp, man. Okay, so Ant-Man and the Wasp, this is really good. Where did I put Ant-Man in middle B tier here? Ant-Man and the Wasp, I'm going to say is high B tier. And I'm going to put it a little above Iron Man, actually. I think it's better. You're expected to watch Ant-Man. Makes sense, right? It's Ant-Man 2. You kind of have to have watched Civil War. But not really. Actually, you know, because they give you the broad strokes. You know what I mean? He got involved in the conflict. He was on sort of like the losing side, and got captured, wound up in prison, and got released, on a contingental basis. My only major criticism of Ant-Man and the Wasp, the thing that stops me from putting it like over here, is it's a bit long. Like right around when you really expect it to start wrapping everything up. This movie doesn't have like a strong villain, right? Because the villain character Ghost she's not really a villain. She's just the antagonist. And I think that's interesting. There's also that dude, I forget his name, but he was played by that dude from Tomb Raider. He's kind of a scummy sort of villain. And they're also sort of, they're racing against time. They're trying not to get captured. There's a sense of urgency to it. It's sort of an unusual film. It's still sort of a comedy, but it takes itself more seriously than the first one. I think it's a better film overall, mostly because like the first film still had that villain problem. Yellow Jacket wasn't all that interesting, but since it was a comedy, I was like, whatever on the villain. This time, you had a more interesting character, but is she really a villain or is she an antagonist? Very interesting take on Ghost. Yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp, my only criticism, it's a bit long. You know what I mean? That's my only major criticism. Okay, Captain Marvel. So I just want to say that there seems to be a real divide between people's opinions on Captain Marvel, and those are the people that hate it, and then there are the people that have an actual opinion. Okay? And I just want to say that I'm not saying that hating this movie is an invalid opinion. I'm just saying that every person that I've seen that hates Captain Marvel hates it for really dumb reasons, okay? Now, so as somebody who's not a total chud, I have an actual opinion on this movie. I can view it on its own merits and not just because I would have some insane hard-on for Brie Larson because she said something that I don't agree with. And by the way, I do agree with the things that Brie Larson has said. So yeah, like I said, I'm not a total chud. I actually think Brie Larson was perfect casting for this. You get a lot of these weird moments where like they release the poster for Captain Marvel and people are like, she should smile more. And it's like, wow, how often do you see superheroes smiling on the posters, you know? And Brie Larson was sort of, she did like a Photoshop job and made Captain America smile on his posters, and it looked really goofy, you know? So yeah, is it a feminist superhero movie? It absolutely is. Do I hate it because of that? Of course not. Do I love it because of that? No, yeah, a little, yeah, but that's not the main draw for me. The main draw for me was that this was nostalgic. Yeah, this movie takes place in the 90s, and it's just very, very, very 90s. And as somebody who was an adolescent and a teenager throughout the 90s, I have this nostalgia for it. They did a great job of that too. So Captain Marvel is aggressively weird too, which is another reason that I like it. I like it being aggressively weird. This could have been a very generic film. So where do I put it though? That's the difficult part. I haven't watched it that many times. I've probably seen it maybe three times. Where do I put it? That's a hard one. I'm sort of struggling here. I think is it low A tier or is it high B tier? I think it's high B tier. I think I'm gonna put it right. Yeah, it's a little better than Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think a little bit better. It's great. The de-aging tech looked great. Like, not that Samuel L. Jackson really ages, but you know, hey, and you guys finally get to see Agent Coulson on screen again because it's a prequel. Yeah, I really liked it. I liked the weird spacey stuff. What really solidified it for me was the twist with the Kree and the Skrull. You know, the Krees and the Skrull are two alien races from the Marvel comics that have always been at war with each other. And in the comics, the Kree are like almost unambiguously the good guys, and the Skrulls are like always like pure. They're like orcs in, you know, Warcraft. They're like, you know, they're just evil, right? Or, well, I guess I don't know anything about Warcraft, so maybe I shouldn't say that. They're like orcs in Lord of the Rings, right? They're always evil. And this sort of showed more of the complexities behind it. Like, are the Kree really the good guys? Are the Skrulls really the bad guys? You know, obviously it kind of turned out to be kind of the other way around. Does that mean that all Skrulls are good and all Kree are evil? Not really, no. But the ones in this movie, it was a nice twist. And as for, you know, like the villains, this is a movie that you spend almost the whole time not really knowing who the villain is, you know. But the two characters that play antagonist, one of which is Ben Mendelsohn's character, and the other which is what's that guy's name? I can never remember his name. Oh my God, he's an actor who's been in a million. The guy who was actually the villain, the dude from. He was the weird, creepy photographer in Road to Perdition. He was Sky Captain. I can't think of his name because, and it always escapes me, and I'm not going to look it up, but he was good too. Yeah, I liked Captain Marvel, and I think that if you hate this movie because of things that Brie Larson said in interviews, that's kind of silly. You know what I mean? That's really silly. And that's sort of like the weird state we are right now where an actor will say something and will punish their movie for it. Very dumb, very dumb. And what's crazy to me is that the kinds of people who, you know, review bombed Captain Marvel before it even came out because of, you know, they disagreed with Brie Larson on a political level or a socio-political level, are the same types of people who go on about how much they hate cancel culture. So, yeah, they tried to cancel Captain Marvel. It didn't quite work out. It was a pretty good movie. Okay, so next, I guess, is Endgame, right? Yeah, Endgame and then Spider-Man. Okay, so Endgame is the follow-up to Infinity War. It's basically the second part of it. It takes place 5 years later. It is really, really good. It's the same directors, the Russo brothers, as Captain America 2 and 3, as Avengers 3. How do I feel about it? I feel it's really, really good. Is it as good as Infinity War? No, I prefer Infinity War because I like that dark ending. Endgame definitely had its sad moments. Let me just place it and then I'll talk about it. I'm going to put it here. Not as good as Thor Ragnarok, better than Black Panther, right? Really, really good, but not cream of the crop. Almost cream of the crop, right? Almost. Very close to it. Still an A+, not an S-, right? That being said, I think my only issue is that... God, do I have any issues? I really don't have any issues. There's nothing really wrong with Avengers Endgame. It's just that Thor Ragnarok is better and Silver and Infinity War are better and Winter Soldier is better. That's all it is. It's just there's 3 better movies. That's all it is. There's nothing really wrong with it. Really good movie. Okay, so Spider-Man, right? Spider-Man Far From Home. This is a difficult one. I've seen it twice now. I've only watched it twice. It's a good movie. How do I compare it to the... I kind of want to put this... I'm going to put it in the B tier. I'm just looking at where in the B tier do I put it, you know? The first one was definitely a stronger film. This one... God, it's got a lot of things going for it, though. I think right around here. Just... little below Doctor Strange, above Ant-Man. Good movie, right? What issues do I have with Spider-Man Far From Home? It's too obvious what the big twist is going to be, right? It's like if you go into this thinking that the character of Mysterio is really a superhero and that he's not like the obvious villain, then like, come on, like, what are you doing? Like, you don't even have to know Spider-Man characters to know that Mysterio is the bad guy. And they play with it a lot, but it's just like an obvious foregone conclusion that they spend way too long stringing you along with. Mysterio is a really, really lame character from the comics that they did make really interesting. Jake Gyllenhaal played him, and this is a guy who can do a creep really well. But he made himself a likable creep. He worms his way into Spider-Man's life. It's not all about his special effects and his theatrics, but also about his social engineering skills, which I think was a cool take on the character, because you can't just throw up illusions and fool people these days. You know, people have smartphones and things like that. So I got to say that, like, yeah, the social engineering aspect of it was cool. The weirdness of it was cool. I liked the way that they handled Avengers Endgame's resolution and everybody coming back to life and everything, and the way they made references to things without expecting you to have absolutely watched everything. It was cool, but at the same time, it felt a little long, and yeah, I mean, that's like really it. I just think that like they drew out the big reveal a little too long. That being said, so let's see. I guess it's Black Widow, right? Yeah. So Black Widow. Oh God, Black Widow was good. Yeah. How good though? Good enough for the A tier? I'm gonna put it high B tier. It's a little better than Captain Marvel. And it's interesting that the two like solo female films like Black Widow and Captain Marvel are right next to each other, with Black Widow being a little bit better. This one's an interquel. It actually takes place around the same time as Civil War, but once again, you don't need to have watched pretty much anything. They make references to the Avengers and this and that, but it's really about Black Widow. It's kind of her origin story, but not. They went over her origin once already previously. Like, they didn't show it, but she talked about it. And this sort of like follows up like people from her origin coming back. I was actually pleasantly surprised by Black Widow. I thought it was going to be too much of an origin story, and it really wasn't. We get a little bit of her as a young child, and then it skips forward. There's multiple Black Widows, but they introduce like basically the character that will be her successor, since Black Widow did die in Avengers Endgame. Well, actually in Infinity War, my bad. She died in Infinity War, and they haven't brought her back, and they probably will not be bringing her back. So they introduced like the Black Widow that will take over from her. They kind of setting up the Hawkeye TV series. But that being said, you had a really scumbag villain. A lot of really cool action. Like, it almost felt like a James Bond film, or like if they were making Call of Duty into a movie. You know, they just did a really great job with the set pieces and everything. And the humor in this was really good. I don't talk about humor a lot unless the movie's overtly a comedy, kind of like Ant-Man and whatnot, or Thor Ragnarok kind of like was a little bit on that. And let me see if that text is anything important. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. That being said, yeah, Black Widow was amazing. High B tier. I think that they could have... I like the villain in the sense that I hated him. He was a hate sink character, which is pretty cool when they do that. Like a character that's just like a scumbag that you just love to hate. I kind of wanted more of him. You know what I'm saying? David Harbour really made this film as sort of like the comedy relief character, because David Harbour can be very, very funny when he wants to be. That being said, yeah, I've only seen it once though, so my opinion may change. It may go up, it may go down, this and that. Okay, so Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is another film that I've only watched once, and this one is extremely fresh in my mind. God, where do I put this? This is I think it's definitely in the A tier. It's absolutely in the A tier. Just where in the A tier is it? I think right here. Low A tier, right? Shang-Chi is a martial arts fantasy science fiction movie that owes a lot to old wuxia films, which are basically like mystical kung fu films. It's really, really good. It's also incredibly funny. Like, once again, it's not really a comedy, but Awkwafina's character is sort of like the comic relief. She's incredibly funny. I always laugh at her, whether, you know, like it's in like Jumanji or whatever else she's done. And then this. The special effects are awesome. The fight scenes are amazing. You know, they really did justice to Shang-Chi's character and his mythos and everything. They changed a few things just enough to make it really, really cool and really, really interesting. They closed a lot of like plot loops from previous films. Like, you don't have to have watched anything, but this film helps. It helps if you've watched Iron Man 3. Like, it gives you a little extra. You don't have to have watched Iron Man 3, but if you have watched Iron Man 3, it's a bonus, and that's always a plus. I don't really have much to say about it because, like, I literally just kind of watched it not too long ago. So, and speaking of having watched not too long ago, we get to the most recent film, Eternals. So Eternals is a really interesting film because this is the first film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to have a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes. And, you know, even the ones like that I put down here, Age of Ultron, or that other people say is the worst, like Iron Man 2 or Thor the Dark World or Incredible Hulk, they have positive reviews. They have 60% above on Rotten Tomatoes. This one, I think it started out positive and then it dipped below. I think it's at like 47%. So I went into this like, this is interesting, right? The critics kind of are very divided. What is it going to be like? So Eternals. First, let me get the good out of the way, right? It's beautiful. It's a beautiful film. The cinematography is amazing. The costumes, the set designs, the set pieces. The action is really good. The acting is really good. They got an all-star studded cast. Everybody that's in it did a great job playing their characters. The story is where this movie is a fail. It's kind of a fail. Everything about it is super obvious. They drag out twists as if they're not self-evident, but my major problem is that it very much felt like they were beat for beat doing the same thing as Captain Marvel, just with 10 primary characters instead of 2 primary characters being Captain Marvel and Nick Fury. It jumps around a lot. Like, it starts off in the past. The Eternals have been here since 5000 BC, and then they're in the present day. But then it keeps jumping back and showing you these things. And I kind of wish it was told a little bit more in order, because once you get to the present day, this whole thing with the deviants returning and the whole mystery of why they're returning and what the Eternals mission actually entails. The big question is, if the Eternals have been on Earth for this long, why haven't they interfered in anything? Why didn't they fight Thanos, for example, right? They kind of hand-wave that away. They hang lampshades all over the place. If you don't know what a hanging lampshade is, it's covering up a plot defect by drawing attention to it. It's called hanging a lampshade as a trope, right? This movie does that constantly. There's plot problems, and it actually points directly at the plot problem to sort of keep your mind off of it. I kind of felt very similar to Age of Ultron, where I felt that this movie came out of the gate hot, fizzles hard, gets really, really bad, and then towards the end gets better. It's weird. They keep mentioning other superheroes, but they're not Marvel superheroes. Like, they mention Batman and Superman, and you get the idea that Batman and Superman are in the Marvel universe, they're probably fictional characters that are loosely based on the Eternals. And this also felt like they were trying to do the Justice League. Icarus is like Superman, and there's a character that's like the Flash, and there's a character that's like Wonder Woman. Her name is Thena. So there's a character that's kind of like Batman. So, God, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't really great either. It's definitely in the D tier. That being said, I liked it better than Age of Ultron. I've only watched it once, and that was a few hours ago. So take what you will. I might like it more. I might like it less upon repeated viewings, but that's my feelings right now. Rounding it out, the TV shows, really quickly, loved WandaVision. That's A tier. I'm not going to try and... I'm going to put all the TV shows at the end. That doesn't mean they're worse than all these movies, but I'm just going to do that. WandaVision, loved it. A tier. Captain America. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, B tier. Really good. It could have been shorter. In the middle, there were a few episodes where not much happens. It starts off strong and it ends strong. The whole middle arc could have been tinkered with a bit. Loki, not done watching it. What If? Haven't seen it at all. So there's my Marvel Cinematic Universe tier list and all my thoughts and everything. Let me know what you guys think. You guys obviously going to have different opinions because no two people have the exact same opinions. Let me know in the comments where you would place things differently or maybe the same. See you guys.